Hey, good day, folks. Welcome to another edition of Lumberjack Logic Live. I'm your host, Neil Johnson. Excited to be with you and excited to share the news with you. And we have another bombshell discovery in the Letitia James case. And I'm talking about the case against her. So, you guys know a little bit about her other mortgage fraud issues that had been discussed a while ago. And that was her basically overvaluing her property. In fact, what she's doing, and this is interesting because we're talking about residential versus commercial, where Trump's loans were commercial. So again, this is the projectocrats saying that, projecting on to the other side what they're actually doing. Okay. Well, there's a new fraud scandal involving Tish James. This is not it's not the same fraud scandal. This one's pretty wild, and it could actually nullify her time as attorney general in the state of New York by the way the laws in New York are written. Now, whether or not we'll see that happen, that's a whole other issue. But I believe that the answer is to actually press federal charges because now we're dealing with election crime, near as I can tell. So, before I get into the news, though, do smash that like, do chat in with where you're from. And also, folks, this is the most ridiculous deal of all time ever at My Pillow in the entire time I've been promoting My Pillow. So you know about these box stores canceling these POs. Mike needs to get rid of some of these sheets so he can have money to buy the other things he needs in the business because he's overloaded on these. It won't last forever. I know I talked to them yesterday and a lot of you bought some of these, but if you have a bed and breakfast, if you have a hotel, anything, or you know somebody owns a hotel, this is a stupid deal for $20, any color, any size for percale bed sheets. He's making no money on this. Neither am I. I'm just because there's just no margin in it at all anymore. It's there's no money being made here. So go over and get yourself some. You do have to go to the /lumberjack page or call the 800 number 1-800-568-2865. Again, that's 1-800-568-2865. Mike Lindell makes the best sheets there are, period, hands down. I prefer the Giza sheets, but if you're looking for a deal, this is crazy. So go get yourself some and order something else while you're over there too. And orders over $75 ship for free. So, I mean, there's just a lot of ways to take advantage of what's going on over there right now. So I want to talk to you guys about home mortgages and how this relates to the Tish James case. So I'm going to show you an interest rate chart to start. So let me see, 30-day mortgage rates, right? I'm going to go to this one here. Okay. All right. So if you buy, okay, how many of you understand when you buy a home, right? There's something called the secondary market. And so when banks are writing loans, just so you understand, if it's on a principal residence, these are FHA, VA, or they're Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac loans. Okay. And when you do those loans, the government is actually securing that debt. And it's where you get the best interest rates. Now, I believe that the government shouldn't be in this business, but that's a whole other issue. We don't need to cover that on this show. The bottom line is I've worked in mortgage lending before. I worked for a bank. I'm marketing for mortgages as well. And if your best rate will always be on your primary residence, okay? Because that's where the least amount of risk is because you own it and you live there. Does this make sense to everybody? So this is why that's the best rates you can get. So when you hear interest rates are 7%, that's for A-paper borrowers. That means people who have good credit, good assets, good income. It means they're putting a right percentage down, all of that, A-paper borrowers on a primary residence. So a lot of people try to game that system. And they'll go buy another place and try to claim that as their primary residence. Well, let me ask you a question. If you're the attorney general of the state of New York, and let's just say, for instance, you go buy a primary residence in the state of Virginia, okay, would that be legal or illegal. Okay, honestly. So, and why would you put this down? Why would you buy it as a primary residence in Virginia, when you're the Attorney General of New York? I haven't checked property tax rates. I probably should have done that before I launched the show. But some of you can out there probably do this. But I'm going to guess that tax rates are higher in New York. Okay. Now, let's see. I'm going to bring this in. Okay, so here I want you to look at this. This is out of Forbes, current second home mortgage rates. And read this. If you're planning to purchase a second home or refinance an existing one, current second home mortgage rates can significantly impact your finances. These rates are typically higher than primary residences due to additional risk posed by second home ownership. So here's your current mortgage rates for April 11th, 2025. Okay. Top offers on bank rate are 5.93. That's probably buying your loan down a little bit. Okay. But let's just go with some of these others. The national average is 6.72, Mutual of Omaha 6.34, so on. Okay. Loan Depot is 6.97. Well, that's the APR. So the rate is this. Second home mortgage rates are interest rates for financing a second home loan, a property other than your primary residence. So look at these. These are the current second home mortgage rates. So you can see these are significantly higher on a 30-year fixed at 7.7 than 6.72. So that's 1 full percent. That's a lot when you factor that into the life of the loan, or versus the top at 5.93. All right, got it? Second home mortgages higher than the others. Well, here's what's going on with Tish James. Revealed, New York Attorney General Letitia James declares Virginia home her principal residence. Now, there's a lot of laws governing this in the state of New York on whether or not you can be, an elected official in the state living in another state. We're going to get into all of this, okay? So she's not honest. She talks about the rule of law. She talks about fair dealing with the law. She talks about all of this stuff. The mainstream media laps it up like thirsty dogs, when the fact is it's all a bunch of BS. Okay. Do me a favor, smash that like if you would. I should put up the pillow banner too for there's the 800 number, 1-800-568-2865. Okay. This article originally appeared on White Collar Fraud and was republished with permission. Letitia James, New York's Attorney General, has built her career on exposing deception. But a quiet real estate transaction in Norfolk, Virginia, carried out just weeks before the Trump fraud trial. Again, remember this. She's carrying this out while she's putting Trump on trial for fraud. Okay, now raises serious questions about her own compliance with New York law. A declaration buried in legal filings states her intent to make a Virginia house her principal residence. I hereby declare that I intend to occupy this property as my principal residence. Those words appear in black and white in a specific power of attorney signed by James and filed in Norfolk on August 17th, 2023, authorizing her relative, Shamise Thompson Hairston, to act on her behalf in a transaction that included the declaration. They were not written by a lawyer acting on James' behalf. They were her words, her intent, her signature. The signed power of attorney is a smoking gun on its own, completely separate from how the mortgage might be interpreted. It stands as a clear declaration of intent from a sitting New York Attorney General to establish principal residency in another state. While joint ownership arrangements sometimes involve owners with different primary residences, this case is different. The declaration in the power of attorney specifically states James's intention to make the property her principal residence. And the mortgage requires both borrowers to establish residency. This raises questions about whether such a declaration was made primarily to secure a preferential mortgage term. Importantly, this is not an isolated incident. Discrepancies in James' mortgage filings appear to follow a longer-term pattern, raising broader questions about disclosure consistency. If James never intended to make the Norfolk property her principal residence, despite signing a document explicitly stating that intention, the declaration may constitute misrepresentation under federal fraud statutes. Hello, Kash Patel, Pam Bondi, Dan Bongino. Okay. This is dealing. So again, because these are backed by the United States government, this would be a federal issue. This would be particularly problematic for someone who has prosecuted others for similar misrepresentations in property matters. And this declaration came at a remarkable moment because on October 2nd, less than 7 weeks later, James would take to the courtroom steps in Manhattan to announce the start of her landmark civil fraud case against Donald Trump. The trial would span months and dominate headlines. James would be in New York nearly every day. The Virginia property at 604 Sterling Street was purchased for $240,000 with a $219,780 mortgage. The deed lists James and Thompson Hairston as co-owners in joint tenancy with right of survivorship as at common law, meaning both have equal ownership rights. Okay. The transaction was completed August 30th, 2023. Thompson Hairston signing the documents both for herself and as attorney in fact for James. What makes this transaction particularly troubling is that the mortgage documents require both borrowers to make the property their principal residence within 60 days by approximately October 30th, 2023, and maintain it for at least 1 year, placing the occupancy deadline squarely during the Trump trial. Okay, so let's just break this down for a sec. So we're looking at a situation where, okay, we haven't even got into that bigger legal issue yet, okay? We're talking simply about buying a home that's a second home because she's in New York at the trial all the time, right? You guys with me? She's buying this as a principal place of residency, and it requires, so the law requires, so you can move. Like I can own the house I'm at. I could, let's say, buy a house in Arizona, and I'm going to move there, so I can claim that as my principal residency. This while I'm selling this, or if I'm going to turn this into the second home, and I don't need to change the mortgage terms on this simply because it becomes a second home. It's still under that mortgage. Makes sense to everybody? Okay. So she is like saying, okay, this is going to be it. This is going to be my, she's supposed to make the property the principal residence within 60 days. That would be October 30th, 2023. When she's in New York all the time. Okay. But let's get into some of the other legal ramifications of this. This isn't simply a matter of having multiple homes. Okay. New York Public Officers Law 3.1 is unambiguous. No person shall be capable of holding a civil office who shall not have resided in this state for the required period. The state constitution, Article 8, Section 13A, specifically requires the Attorney General be a resident of the state for 5 years immediately preceding election. Furthermore, public officers, so this will be important later because I'm going to go back to that piece of it, but let's go to this part. Furthermore, Public Officers Law 31D mandates that an office becomes vacant when the office holder ceases to be an inhabitant of the state. Okay, folks, let me repeat that. Public Officers Law 31D mandates that an office becomes vacant when the office holder ceases to be an inhabitant of the state. Again, this is her primary residence. It's in Virginia. Okay? The consequences under New York law are immediate and severe. When an office holder moves outside the required jurisdiction, they can no longer legally hold their position. The office, folks, is rendered vacant. Vacant. In other words, if the office is rendered vacant, what is Tish James not, my lovely chat? Okay? Seriously. Tell me, what? If the office is rendered vacant, what is Tish James not? Correct, Scoop. She is not the AG of New York. She wait, I saw something. I'm not seeing a ton of your comments as I'm trying. She is trans residential and IDs is a VA resident. She is pretending to be New York AG. News in 60 seconds. That's brilliant commentary. Okay. So the office is rendered vacant. If James declared Virginia as her principal residence, which the power of attorney clearly shows was her intention, she may have triggered an automatic vacancy in the office of Attorney General under New York law. Now, if an automatic vacancy was triggered, okay, under New York law by the fact that she's claiming residency in Virginia, then she was vacant during the time of the trial. So at that point, folks, she had no authority during the period she was prosecuting her highest profile case. And if she has an automatic vacancy, what should that do to her cases? If an automatic vacancy was created by Tish James lying to get preferential mortgage, so she did one of two things. She either lied to get preferential mortgage in Virginia, that's a federal fraud issue, lying on the form, signed it, her signature, her attesting to it. Exactly. Nullify, Michelle. It should completely nullify all of her previous proceedings because she was vacant. Not valid. Not happening. Okay. Beyond those legal implications, though, folks, there are also financial questions surrounding this transaction. Standard mortgage requirements for owner-occupied occupied properties, such as those documented in federal housing forms, typically offer substantially lower interest rates than investment properties. Okay. The other thing is with investment properties, if you own too many of them, do you know what? You get what's called balloon mortgages. Do you guys all understand this? So like if it becomes commercial, if what you're doing is commercial business. So let's say Tish James, let's take a scenario here. Let's say Tish James lied about Virginia being a resident. Okay, so she's still a resident of New York, but she lied about Virginia being her residence so she could get this preferential mortgage. So if she did that and say she owns multiple investment properties, eventually she can't even get normal mortgage rates. She gets balloon rates. Might be a 5-year balloon, which means simply that you've got a rate of, let's say, 7% for 5 years, and then you have to pay the whole amount out or refinance it under the current mortgage rates. Make sense? Okay. So is this an investment property? Is it actually going to be her primary residence? Is she trying to escape taxes in New York? Because, the left tells us all the time that if you're trying to escape taxes, you're a bad person. Like if you wanted to move to another state to escape the high taxes of New York, that would be bad. Wow. The financial motivation behind claiming a property as a primary resident is significant and raises troubling questions about whether this declaration was made for financial benefit rather than reflecting actual living arrangements. The pattern of questionable documentation extends to James's official disclosures. Her 2023 financial disclosure statement includes an earlier Virginia property, 3121 Perrone Avenue, Norfolk, from 2020, but nothing about the Sterling Street transaction. There is no reference to the Sterling Street property or the $220,000 mortgage in 2023, despite its joint ownership and recent purchase date. So she's not even including this on her financial disclosure statements. According to New York's ethics guidelines, jointly owned real estate may be exempt from disclosure only if it is used solely as what? A primary or secondary residence and does not generate income. If the Sterling Street property is being rented or used as an investment, the omission could constitute a violation of public officers law. The question becomes, how many undisclosed properties exist, people? How many? and why the apparent effort to keep them off official records. Remember that Tish James went after Donald Trump, saying that he had overvalued his properties in a commercial real estate transaction, not federally backed, not secured by the Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac programs. Okay. She was saying that he had overvalued his properties. Bankers, sophisticated investment bankers, commercial bankers looked at all of it and were happy to write the loans. Yet what this would be lying about the loan so you could get preferential mortgage. Happens all the time. But remember, no one's above the law, Tish James says. I want to bring in, I saw a comment. I'm just going to bring it in here quick. Larry, all of us, I think, are in this boat. But nothing was going to happen during the Biden regime. I keep looking at what Kash Patel and Dan Bongino are telegraphing. Okay. And there was another thing. I did a story this last week because it appeared Kash Patel had done a sting operation on somebody. Now, it does appear at this point that this goon actually did get the position at the Washington field office, even though it's not reflected on the website yet. There is so much confusion surrounding this case because I had it on good authority from somebody higher up in the organization that he did not. So I don't know what's going on with that yet. But here's the scoop. Dan Bongino made a tweet today, and he talked about things are not what they seem, basically, and how there are certain people we need to keep in positions who have certain information. Okay? I don't know. But here's the thing, folks. I've met both Kash Patel and Dan Bongino. And Kash Patel was a couple very brief interactions. Dan Bongino was a little bit longer, and I can tell you this much. I trust him. I trust him right now. And I'm going to give them the time that they need to put cases together. Most cases are like 4 years to put the cases together. So whatever. I mean, but we need it sooner than that. Okay. We need something by September. Okay. But, yeah, that's, I just wanted to address that really quickly. So thanks for the comment, Larry. I don't see all your folks' comments, but I'll get back to the article here. All right. The Attorney General, of course, holds a unique position of public trust. James won a $350 million verdict against Trump for misrepresentations and property valuations. Okay. And then we've got these troubling declarations of her own real estate. These questions take on even greater weight when considering this, folks. Listen to this. James has already registered a campaign committee, James for New York 2026 Attorney General, and filed a campaign finance disclosure as early as July 17th, 2023, before signing the power of attorney, with the most recent filed on January 15th, 2025. So this is after signing the power of attorney, after saying that she's going to be a principal resident of Virginia, which she cannot be and hold the office in New York, according to New York state law. This demonstrates her clear intention to seek re-election both before and after declaring her intent to make Virginia her principal residence. Under the New York State Constitution, candidates for Attorney General must have been residents of New York for 5 consecutive years immediately preceding the election. So how can she have been a resident of New York for the 5 preceding years if she's claiming a residency in Virginia? If James' sworn declaration in 2023 reflected a change in domicile to Virginia, even temporarily, it would, of course, jeopardize her eligibility to run again in 2026 because there would be 5 consecutive years. Y'all with me? So here's the 4 questions that remain unanswered. Why did James explicitly declare her intent to make Virginia her principal residence while serving as New York's Attorney General? 2, did she fulfill the 60-day occupancy requirement in her mortgage while simultaneously appearing in New York courts? 3, can she document continued New York residency during this period sufficient to maintain her legal authority as Attorney General? And I would add the question then is, if she can document continued New York residency, then why? Then she's got to be under investigation for the fraud on a federal level for lying on her mortgage forms. 4, will this affect her eligibility to run for re-election, which requires uninterrupted New York residency? The evidence is unequivocal, folks. The signature is there. The declaration is clear. The legal requirements are unambiguous. The people of New York who depend on their attorney general to uphold the highest standards of transparency and compliance deserve an explanation. Okay? Is Letitia James, folks, you can answer this in the chat. Is Letitia James playing by the same laws that she's enforcing? Is Letitia James playing by the same rules that she's enforcing? We've just found out that either 1, she lied on the mortgage form, or 2, she lied on the forms to run for attorney general. And she would have then, if she hadn't lied on the attorney or the mortgage forms, she would have then been lying during the course of the trial by continuing to run the trial when she had no legal authority to do so. So this is again, share this with Kash Patel and Dan Bongino and Pam Bondi, because this is ridiculous. This is ridiculous. We need, look, here's the thing. I believe everybody in this country has broken the law. Some by ignorance. I mean, just, we don't know. I mean, there's so many laws on the books you don't even know. So, but then they'll tell us ignorance is no excuse for the law. Or sometimes people just bend the rules, they do whatever. And most of the time, people don't go to jail. I understand that. But here's the reality. If the people enforcing the law are able to flagrantly violate the law, we have a real problem in this country. Agreed? Yes or no? I mean, I understand. I mean, that, you know, like today you might speed and you might not get caught. You broke the law. Okay? This is real crimes going directly against and violating the Constitution of the state of New York. This is a real crime going against federal statutes so you can get a preferential interest rate on a home loan. These are real crimes. And then they're being committed by the person who's supposed to enforce the law. This is the problem. This is the problem I have. I get it. I mean, I want the FBI to do these arrests of drug gangs like they did down in Florida the other day. 100% I want that to happen. But I am more concerned about the people who are lording the law over us while completely ignoring it, committing fraud and lying to us, abusing the power that they hold. That's what I'm more concerned about. And I would think most of you are as well. Again, go check out MyPillow. This is the most ridiculous deal in MyPillow history. Percale bed sheets, any color, any size, $20. You'll never see it again. It's all because of this ridiculous. They treat Mike like crap, the marketplace, where they go out in these big box stores, order up this stuff, and then cancel POs when the truck is loaded. The truck was loaded, ready to go. And then they go, oh, sorry, we're going to cancel that. So you have all these labor costs as well as the product costs, all of that going on. So go over and support him, help him close those sheets out, buy something else too, because he's not making any money off these sheets, but he does need to recover his investment. But if you own a hotel or know somebody who does or anything, this is the time to buy. You'll never see a deal like this again. It's ridiculous. This is crazy. 1-800-568-2865. 1-800-568-2865. Call that 800 number. It's the surest way to get things done. Somebody messaged me the other day through YouTube and said, hey, Neil, I couldn't order through my store. Something was going wrong. That could be a browser issue. It could be a lot of things. But just call the 800 number for my store and just order it that way. Okay? And then you get to talk to these home operators and you get to support them. And most of them are recovering addicts. Okay. Getting them back on track. Mike is such a wonderful guy. So go support him in his efforts. mypillow.com/lumberjack or 1-800-568-2865. Thanks so much for listening, folks. I want to see justice. I know you guys do too. So let's see some justice. All right. Catch you on the next episode, folks. Peace out.